It is now, and we are here. It is Fight IQ presented by RotoWire coming at you with the UFC 297 preview show. That is Strickland versus Du Plessis for the middleweight title. Another title fight as well, the vacant women's bantamweight strap, Mayra Bueno Silva versus Raquel Pennington. We will take it all for you, all 12 fights. We will break down betting, gambling, DFS with my compadres here. It is a Joe, Sun Tzu, and also Drake. Never a burden to us. I will continue that pun, and I will continue that pun until I get tired of it, which certainly hasn't happened yet. So, fellas, we were talking before we went on the air here, and kind of saying not a great card from a fan standpoint, but A, what do you think of it from a DraftKings and betting standpoint? And B, as we were discussing, what of the weight missing antics that went on today? And Joe, I'll go to you first. Why don't you cover it all for us?
Yeah, so thank you for catching me up on the weight missing antics. For those of you that don't know, Taris missed weight significantly, catch the beating, and Jasmine Jourdain that fight is now at bantamweight, and Malcolm Gordon missed by 1.5 pounds. So we did have some misses. The good news is all the fights are scheduled to go on as scheduled, which is good. So we still have 12 fights. I think this is a pretty decent DraftKings card. There's a couple of fights that I think could go either way that could make for some interesting DraftKings play. In terms of betting, I haven't really decided yet. There's a couple of favorites that I like that maybe if you parlay them together or if you look to bet that fighter via some type of finish prop, it could add some value. But this could be an interesting card for DraftKings. I mean, unfortunately, we're still at the $100K $25 buy-in. So they raised the price, but they kept the prize pool essentially the same. So I don't know what it's going to take to actually, get a prize pool up there again. But there's still money to be won.
Absolutely, and we are here to help win it. Drake, what about you? Just muted myself. Just some overall thoughts on the card before we get into it. How you feeling about it, and what's your general strategy coming into the 12 fight slate?
Well, I think there's some good value to be had on this, which opens up some, your bigger options in DraftKings. So I like it from a DraftKings standpoint. There's nothing too blown out odds wise, so there's some definitely good parlays out there. But overall, I mean, as far as a pay-per-view fight goes, it's not the greatest, but it is what it is. There should be, a fair amount of finishes on this card, so I'm at least looking forward to that.
Yeah, it is what it is. Kind of the tagline for the UFC these days. And so before we get started, nonetheless, I just want to say if you want to try all content on RotoWire, 10 days free, go to www.rotowire.com/free. As I say, 10 days free, all our premium content, no credit card required. And having said that, we will now move into the aforementioned first fight, which is Malcolm X Gordon at 8,300 taking on Jimmy Flick at 7,900 on DraftKings. The line has gotten very wide. It is Malcolm Gordon at -205, Jimmy Flick at +175. And, the line may be a little too wide, but I still like Malcolm Gordon here. Jimmy Flick has just fallen apart in the cage since he's been back from his hiatus following that flying triangle in his debut. And I just don't know where he's at, whether he's just getting his leg kicked to pieces, whether he's just failing miserably on takedown attempts. I mean, I almost consider him something of a guard puller these days. And Malcolm Gordon, despite being subbed twice in his UFC career now, on the regional scene, he was the slick jiu-jitsu guy. So it's not like he doesn't have that BJJ game. And I just can't trust where Jimmy Flick is at now. I mean, it's funny because we've seen Malcolm Gordon self-destruct in the cage. But I think Jimmy Flick is the more likely candidate to do it here. I can't trust Jimmy Flick to be functional in the cage anymore. I'm going to be on Malcolm Gordon pretty heavy, which is a phrase I never thought I'd say, and I hope I never have to say again. But I think that coming into the first fight here, I'm gonna bet on Flick self-destructing again, and there's going to be one guy in the cage who can at least, do what he has to do. And I think that's Malcolm Gordon. I don't think Flick has very much to threaten him here. And I think if they do get on the ground, Gordon can at least take care of himself. He's not going to be hurt or anything or tired or, I think he's going to handle himself pretty well. So my pick has to be Malcolm Gordon. We're going to start with Drake. How you see in the first fight here?
Before Drake starts, can you give the salaries, Chris?
You're kidding, right?
No.
Drake, you heard me give the salaries, did you not?
No. Did you, Drake?
Drake?
I don't remember.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Chat, did I give the salary? You know what? I'm going to do it. But chat, type a yes in chat if I did the salaries.
I did not give the salary.
It's $8,300 for Gordon. You're going to make me skip you again, Joe, all the time. Remember what I was doing last week? That was punishment. It's Gordon, $8,300. Flick, $7,900. Would you like the odds as well again? Yes? Was that a yes? Okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't looking at the screen. It's Malcolm Gordon minus 205, Jimmy Flick plus 175. Now, Joe, now that I've read the odds for the first time, can you please give us your pick?
So we're skipping Drake now.
Well, you're messing me up, dude. Okay.
Okay, I'll
Drake.
start.
Okay.
Fine, I'll start. Okay, so this line was a lot closer when it opened up. I believe it was Malcolm minus 120, minus 130. A lot of money came in on Malcolm. I think there's a certain amount of recency bias here. I mean, he did look good against Mokaev before he got subbed. Jimmy Flick, the story with Jimmy Flick is he's a fighter that retired, came back, decent jiu-jitsu practitioner, pretty active in social media. At least it looks like he's training for this fight. Now this line got steamed to over 2-1. I think Gordon is going to be pretty popular on DraftKings because 8.3K minus 200. That's pretty significant line value, which is likely going to drive ownership. However, I really see both of these fighters as being flawed. I see this as a 50-50 fight. Somebody reached out to me in my DMs on Twitter, and this is someone who is a genuinely conservative bettor who told me he put $1,000 on Flick at this number. So that kind of raised my eyebrows because this is a grinder, someone who really grinds, and he told me he put money. I'm not going to say who, but so that got me thinking, one, I did see this fight as closer to 50-50 than minus 2-1 Gordon. I think this is a fight you should have exposure to, even though it's the curtain jerker. Some people are really weird about the curtain jerkers. They either feel that they must have exposure or they feel that they should skip it altogether. I think this is a fight you should probably have exposure to. I think it's going to finish inside the distance. Both these fighters are flawed. I am going to lean Flick here for no other reason than all the line value is on Malcolm Gordon. I think he's going to be higher owned. I think there might be a little bit of leverage you could get by playing Flick in DraftKings. I'm not endorsing betting him per se, but I'm going to actually pick him for DraftKings purposes here.
Yeah, I mean, if Flick had shown anything in the last two fights, I would be with you. But I needed to see something, and I just didn't see it. Drake, what about you? Gordon, or are you going with the underdog here?
No, I'm with you, Chris. If I could, I wouldn't pick anybody in this fight because it's just that bad. It's two low-level fighters who hasn't shown us much of anything. I am on Gordon. They both have a path to win this fight. We all know that Flick is super dangerous on the mat. So I mean, it's just I think it comes down to whoever controls better. If it stays on the feet, obviously Gordon's going to have the better day. If it goes down, well, it could go either way. We could see Flick, snatch his neck, or we could see Gordon just grind out some wrestling. So I'm slightly on Gordon. I don't like it, but it is what it is.
Yes, sir. It is what it is. And a really kind of maybe a rude awakening to the card, because you could be in a position at the end of the first fight that you really don't want to be, asking yourself why I didn't roster more Jimmy Flick, which is a question no one ever wants to ask themselves. But never mind that for now. Let's get away from that as quickly as we can and go to the intriguing weight miss in a new weight category now that we talked about earlier. It is Jourdvicious at 9,500 taking on Priscilla Cachoeira at 6,700. Those are the salaries, Joe, in case you're just joining us. The line on this fight, Jourdvicious at -370, Priscilla Cachoeira at +295. And, I was asking Drake before we came in if and we'll get to it, if you feel like the weight miss does anything to alter this fight at all, take you off of your initial read. I think mine was just about the same as everybody else's, which is, Jaudvicious is big and strong anyway. And we saw her get 4 takedowns against Gabriela Fernandez. We know that Cachoeira gets taken down. We also know that Priscilla Cachoeira hits hard, and she surprised us sometimes. I would have to say she's always live for a knockout just because of the division that we're in. But the pick, I think, has to be sort of a standard one here, which is Jourdvicious to get the rinse and repeat takedowns and possibly a submission. So I'm going to be pretty straightforward here. And we'll start with Drake this time. Drake, how do you see this one?
I see it how probably 95% of other bettors see this fight. What do you call her, Joe? Catch a beating?
Yes, Priscilla catch a beating.
Yeah, so I think that's exactly how this is going to go. I don't expect, unless she somehow catches Jasmine with something hard, which, Jasmine's got a good chin. She's already shown us that. So she can take a couple of shots. I think this is, like you said, it's going to be rinse and repeat, takedown, 4, 5, 6 takedowns, depends on how long, Cachoeira can survive. But I got Jasmine all day.
Yeah, I agree. Cachoeira could always go to her eye gouging technique, which is her super secret technique. But otherwise, I think Jourdvicious is pretty safe. Joe, what about you? Pretty standard, or are you going to surprise us with something?
No surprises here. So catch a beating, a.k.a. Zombie Girl. Catch a beating tag came from the Shevchenko fight where she just actually literally caught a beating, a fight that should have been stopped way before it was. That's how she got the moniker Priscilla Catch a Beating. Look, she's an interesting fighter. If I was Jasmine, I would go right for the takedown and rinse and repeat. Priscilla's got no ground game. She's got no takedown defense. This is a home crowd for her. It's the second fight of the night. 9.5K. She is the most expensive fighter on DraftKings, which means that, the ceiling, you need to get either a finish or you need to get those rinse and repeat takedowns, because there's not going to be, in my opinion, a lot of significant strikes. Like neither, I think Priscilla absorbs more than she actually lands. And I don't, necessarily see Jourdvicious as like being a volume striker here. I see her, getting control time, maybe getting some ground and pound, getting some takedowns. So, the risk here at playing her at 9.5K is the ceiling. I think the floor is pretty safe, which, makes her pretty good cash play. It's just you need to be cognizant of the ceiling, and I think that's the only reason why she might not be higher owned than say, a Malott or a Jillian Robertson, who I think have better finish capabilities. So I like Jourdvicious a lot here. I'm going to say that she wins by finish, and play her in cash. Feel free to play her in GPPs. Just recognize that the ceiling may not be as high as some of the other fighters.
Okay, so you run 100 GPPs, and Joe, I know you're big playing. How many Cachoeiras do you have?
I'm probably, honestly, I've been playing a lot less in the 150s because I don't have access to a lot of the lower dollar contests. I can't see the dollar contests. I only see 3 and up. So if I play 150, I'll play 150 in the 3. If I was going to play, I would probably have her at 5% or less.
Wait, so what's the deal with that? You're too good to play. They've said you're too good to play in the dollars, and they won't let you play.
No, here's the thing. So during COVID, quick story. During COVID, I had 1 month where I really lit it up. Like I played a lot in that 1 month, and because of that 1 month, they targeted me as a high velocity player, and I can only see contests. Generally $5 or less. but $3 if it's a mass entry. So I could see the $3 contest, but I can't play anything under $3. You know, and I lobbied multiple times saying, hey guys, like I'm not a McLovin, I'm not an Awesome Mo, I'm not a JDC, like I'm not these guys, right? I had one freaking good month where I played a lot, and that was it. So I'd say 5% or less Priscilla Catua beating.
All right, Drake, same question quickly. 100 lineups, how many Catuaras?
I will X her out of everything that I will put in.
Wow. All right. Strong stance. I like it. All right. Moving on to a fight that is minus 600 to finish on the line. Last I checked, it is Johan Leonise at 8,400 taking on Sam Patterson at 7,800. The actual fight line is pretty close. It's minus 140 for Leonise, plus 120 for Sam Patterson. And I read that line out just to say, I think this is going to finish too. The only thing that I would say is that Leonise works so slowly that we kind of have to, hope that Patterson carries the load here. He is very stiff. He is very upright. Even in his Contender Series fight, he was having trouble negotiating in the first round. Kind of got knocked down or off balance. It's kind of hard to say. But, I don't like Sam Patterson at all. I really don't think, there's anything. I mean, that isn't really recency bias for me, just based on the first fight. I didn't like his Contender Series fight either, and then I didn't like his debut. Leonise is a good athlete. He's very powerful. Sam Patterson can wrestle a little bit, can grapple a little bit. So can Leonise. I'm just going to go with the better athlete here because I think it's two low-level fighters. I'm going to go with the better athlete. They both hit sufficiently hard. I'm taking Leonise. And Joe, we'll start with you here. How do you see this one?
Yeah, so this is another fight to target. I'm going to actually go the other way here. Kind of reverse recency bias here. I mean, Patterson was a big favorite. He got nuked, in his fight. I think he's got the better ground game. Leonise is not technical. He throws big punches and he hits hard. So there might be some scary moments. But I think if this gets through the first round, I can definitely see him tiring, and I could see Patterson taking advantage of a superior ground game. He's tall, he's long. He is moving up in weight, which is kind of important to note. He's moving. This is his first fight at welterweight. I believe this fight is at 170. He is moving up. And this is not the easiest opponent to move up against, but he's certainly not the hardest. Leonise he's gonna be pumped up by the local crowd. Third fight of the night, but I could definitely see him having an adrenaline dump. I do think this is a good fight to target because I could see it going Leonise by knockout, Patterson by sub. Again, I think you mentioned it was minus 600 to finish. Anytime you see a 3-round fight that's minus 600 to finish, you got to play it. You got to take some shares of both sides. I would not feel comfortable playing either one of these guys in cash unless I really had a strong feeling as to which way the fight was going to go. But this is certainly a GPP special. And you should have, a fair amount of ownership of each side if you're spreading in MMEs.
Yeah, fair amount of ownership, kind of a hold your breath every time they exchange kind of fight. Can get a knockout at any time. Drake, which way you leaning on the minus 600 KO fest here? Finish fest, I should.
This is kind of another one of those fights where I really wish I just didn't have to pick somebody.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Chris. I'm also on Leonise, but I mean that it comes with a huge asterisk in that he actually needs to work. If he's going to be low volume and do nothing again, he's just going to walk himself into something stupid. That said, Patterson is extremely stiff. He likes to just stand tall with his chin up, which is a horrible thing to do against a guy like this. So I can see it going both ways. Like I said, I'm on the favorite. I do prefer the favorite. I don't like Patterson at all. I would probably not play him a ton, but like you said, it's minus 600 to finish. So you kind of have to play both in order to get somewhere, especially if this ends in the first round.
Yeah, absolutely. And with fights like this, and I've talked about it before, I generally just default to the better athlete, and I'm going to do that here too. If it burns me, it will. I think this is a fight where I'll have like a lot more lane. It's just because I kind of want to get some want to get some leverage on the field here. I think a lot of this is going to be split, and I think if you go a little heavier one way or the other, that could help in the lineup builds there. So I'll be a little heavier on lineup on Leonise. RIP my lineups if he gets knocked out, but that's how I'm going to play it there. And next fight up, it is Jillian Robertson at 9,100 taking on Viana at 7,100. Line on this fight, Jillian Robertson is probably too big of a favorite, minus 300. Viana coming back plus 250. I am on Jillian Robertson here. I just every time she's facing like a lower level opponent or somebody who can't strike very well, or just sort of like somebody who isn't aggressively going to chase takedowns, I think you have to kind of lean there just because she's so aggressive. She's so single-minded. When she gets the fight to the ground, she's always hunting for subs. She has a lot of first-round finishes. And at 9,100, she can really pay that off. And Viana is another upright fighter. She's somebody, she has a sub game, but she doesn't go for takedowns herself, which probably means she's going to end up on her back a lot, fishing for stuff. And, she could catch Robertson, but I think Robertson is good enough from top position where she really shines to where she's not going to get stuck in like an arm bar or something. That seems a little too rudimentary for her. I think she's going to control this fight on the ground, and her aggressiveness is going to pay. Like against fighters who can't strike, her aggressiveness actually pays on the feet because she actually just sort of, floods the space with volume. And I think that's going to help here too. So I'm on Robertson. There's a little bit of sub risk. I wouldn't say a whole lot of knockout risk, but a little bit of sub risk. But I'm going to go the other way. I think this could be a Jillian Robertson first round domination. So I'm going to go with it. And I think we start with Joe here. Joe, how do you see this one?
So I don't know if you gave the salaries, but I'm not going to. I mean, if you didn't, that's okay.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
No. We don't have to go back here. Jillian Robertson, okay. I believe, is 9.1K. I think this is a good. I think this is a good matchup for Jillian Robinson here. This is a low-key Vaseline metric fight. It really is. I mean,
okay.
Viana, not bad, not hard on the eyes, and Jillian actually cleans up quite well herself. You have to follow my favorite MMA journalist, Nina Drama. Definitely worth a follow. Her interviews are hilarious, and she has like the fighters rate other fighters like on a scale of 1 to 10. And she asked Viana, like, what do you think fighters would rate you? And she goes, well, it depends if they want to hook up with me or not. Like really funny. I really do like Jillian Robertson here. I think you said it, Chris. Like her arm bar from guard is really what Viana has here. I expect her to spend a lot of time on her back and not in a good way. I definitely see Robertson here potentially getting a finish inside the distance. The only caveat I have here is that when things don't go well for Robinson, she kind of gets discouraged. Like now she's training at the Goat Shed in Florida, which is a really good camp. She's spending some time there. I think was a good camp move for her. I expect to see a lot of confidence here. She is technically Canadian, although she lives in Florida, and I think she left Canada when she was like 8 years old. So she is technically Canadian. I expect that Bruce Buffer will announce her as being from Canada, which, again, maybe gets her a few cheers. I do like Robertson here. I think she's a sneaky good play with a high ceiling at 9.1K, probably a higher ceiling than Jasmine Jaudvicious, perhaps even a higher ceiling than Mike Malott. But I do like her here, and I even think that, she's parlayable.
All right. Drake shook his head there, so we will have something to talk about when that comes up. The one thing I am sorry for is, I don't know if you guys know this, but Joe Rogan will not be on the card. So we will not, unfortunately, be able to hear him tell the story of Viana beating up a mugger for the 846th time. But that's all right. We will make do with that. And Drake, how do you see this one? Do you think Robertson is going to work her top game or something else going on here?
I've got the opposite of both of you. I am on Viana again. Seemingly always on her for whatever reason. But no, I agree with everything that you both said. 100%. Robertson will always be dangerous. She's got a dangerous ground game. And the thing that really put me on Viana is her strength. She is going to be much stronger than Robertson. And although both of them have dreadful takedown defense. It may only take a couple of shots from Viana to Robertson for her to slow down. And if that happens, we could see Robertson in a world of hurt. I mean, obviously at 7.1K, it's, you know, it's a risk. She's a minus 2.5 to 1 favorite, or so she's plus 250. I mean, it's a risk. I like Viana a lot in this fight, though. It depends on which version of Robertson we're going to see and who implements the game plan better.
Yeah, no, I agree, and you know, Joe kind of alluded to the same thing, kind of a glass cannon, if you can put it that way, for Julian Robertson, where she comes out like a house of cards, and then if it doesn't go her way, she kind of fades. So I can see the Viana pick, and I think Robertson is going to be the much more popular play. I just don't see enough offense coming from her, but definitely a play that can be made, and so we'll watch for that. Next fight coming up, another big weight miss. It is Sidi at 8,900 taking on the one who missed weight, Ramon Taveras, at 7,300. Missed weight by, I believe, 4 pounds. Line on this fight is minus 175 for Sidi, plus 150 for Ramon Taveras. For those who do not know, this is a rematch of a Contender Series fight. Sidi knocked Ramon Taveras down, jumped on him. It was very clear that Ramon Taveras was fighting in awake and alert, and the ref stopped the fight way prematurely, which I guess is why this is here. Although, I mean, the fight still doesn't need to be here. This is pay-per-view, but nonetheless, it is here. And I don't know if this fight necessarily ends in a knockout, but I do like Sidi here. Just that Contender Series fight, just really aggressive, really just flooding the space with combinations, and it was getting really tough for Taveras to deal with him. He was trying to like sit behind his jab, and it just wasn't working. Now the 4-pound weight miss is interesting. If he does try to like wrestle here, or if he does try to use it in some way, I don't know. But I can't really bank on that. I think Sidi is going to kind of put on a repeat performance. Maybe sans finish, but a finish is possible, I think. I just think Sidi is the better fighter here. So that's the way I'm going. And Drake, how you see this one?
I am also on Sidi. I don't like that these guys are fighting again in such a short time frame. I mean, literally, it was his last fight, and Taveras has had one fight in between it. I'm not a fan of that, and I really don't see this fight going much differently. Taveras, I mean, if he gets it to the ground, we could see a completely different game, but I don't see him doing it. I think Sidi just runs through him.
Yeah, I agree. I think that aggression and combinations are going to pay some big dividends here. Joe, what about you? You see a different result here? Or are you sticking with the Contender Series more or less?
Yeah, I mean, look, I just think this is a weird fight to be on a pay-per-view. Like, I don't really understand why this needed to be. I understand that Dana White was really appalled, like personally appalled at the stoppage, which is why they're running this fight back. Again, I don't know that there's going to be a different outcome. I honestly can't recall the fight. I had to do some research to look at it. Like, it didn't resonate with me at all as a fight that needed to happen again. I'll go with Sidi, just because there's no narrative surrounding this fight that tells me it's going to go any differently than it did, other than the fact that, you know, Taveras missed weight by 4 pounds. At that weight level, he probably didn't even try. At some point, he just said, I'm not going to make weight. The hell with it. I don't know if it's an advantage or not, but this is a fight you should probably target. It's likely going to finish inside the distance. Another GPP fight, unless you're really super confident in Sidi, which I'm not. So I see this as a GPP fight. Have some spread ownership for MMEs, but asking me for a pick, I'll give you Sidi.
Yeah, I think that has to be the way to go. 2 low-level fighters in a fight we've basically already seen. I don't see a real reason to go another way, but we do have at least an entertaining bout coming up. Next is Charles Jourdain at 9,000 taking on Sean Woodson at 7,200. The line in this fight, Jourdain minus 214, Sean Woodson plus 184. And these are two very active, very exciting strikers. They both have some semblance of a ground game. If you can ask me who's going to wrestle more often, it would be Sean Woodson. If you can ask me who is the better jiu-jitsu fighter here, it would be Charles Jourdain. But I tend to think that this one stays on the feet more often than not. And the more I think about it, it just kind of Sean Woodson as the deer in headlights here. I mean, he does have the length against everybody he fights, but I see Jourdain as such a more technical striker. I think he kind of put Sean Woodson to sleep in this one, unless he sticks to the wrestling early and often. And as discussed, that might not be too good for him either. So I'm really on Jourdain here. I think there's going to be a lot of action in this fight, and it's going to end in a knockout. And I think this is 100+ points, just staring you in the face, really. So that's my read here. I'm going to be pretty heavy on Jourdain. Joe, what do you feel about this one?
So I think Woodson's very sneaky at 7.2K. I don't think Jourdain's going to try to take him down. He has got, I believe, a 9-inch reach advantage. If he could stay at range, which I think he can do here, I think this could be a greasy decision. Again, I think it'll be interesting if the fight hits the ground. We've seen Jourdain pull off some chokes, but I do think this fight is going to remain standing. I don't think either fighter is going to go for a takedown. So that means, it's going to be, can Woodson fight at range using his 9-inch reach advantage? At 7.2K, I'm willing to take a chance. I'll certainly have some shares at Jourdain, but I think at 7.2K, you could really actually build a decent lineup around him. So I'm going to pick Woodson to get the upset. Not saying you shouldn't have some shares at Jourdain. Not saying, Chris, that if Jourdain gets inside of him, that he could perhaps put him to sleep. But I'm going to say that he can fight with his 9-inch reach advantage, keep Jourdain at bay, and maybe there's like a greasy type of decision here.
Yeah, I just see, I understand the length. I just see it more as kind of like a giraffe than like the competition he's beat has been so much of really nothing. I just can't really get behind it, but I do understand it, especially since I think there is going to be a firefight potentially here. Drake, what do you think, Woodson or Jourdain?
I think what you just said is freaking silly. You saying he didn't fight anybody. Jourdain hasn't fought anybody.
Well, let's see. Bazooka,
it's no different than Jourdain beating up on Kron Gracie, who's 1,000 years old and hadn't fought in 50 years.
That's not his only fight. Okay, look.
No, so he beat Ricardo Ramos. Okay, well, there's another lower end fight. You go down a little further, it's Lando Viana. That's nobody. Andre Ewell, nobody. So no, Jourdain has no wins against anybody of any.
Well, come on, but those wins are better than Bazooka. Come on,
we don't know that yet. We don't know that yet.
Andre Ewell is another lengthy guy, so it could be a nice mirror match for this. But anyway, yeah.
Either way, I'm on Woodson. These odds should be flipped. Woodson's the better fighter. He's better everywhere. That includes striking power and on the mat. I have Woodson all day, and I will lock that in.
Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't expect. I certainly didn't expect to be that strong on Woodson, but that's interesting, and it's especially interesting because I know that when me and Drake are so diametrically opposed on a fight, I just know he's lurking in the DM waiting for his fighter to come in so he can tell me about it on the DM. So I'll be waiting for that if it happens. But,
no doubt.
Yeah. But so we have some extra interest in that one, and we will now move on to the next fight, which is, I threw myself out of position here. It is Brad Katona taking on Garrett Armfield. Katona at 8,800. Armfield at 7,400. Line on this fight. Katona can be had at -212. Armfield at +182. And in my article, I described Garrett Armfield as a style to dazzle on the regional scene. This is kind of just what he reminds me of. Kind of just a stiff striker who is he just has that what they call the meta down, which is be aggressive, come forward, outpace, try to throw big strikes, and just flood the space with offense until you break your opponent. That's fine, and it's going to work on lower level competition. I don't think it's going to work on Brad Katona, who's a good athlete, who has a ground game, who can throw volume in his own right, can mix in some takedowns. I just see Brad Katona everywhere. I actually love Katona here. I don't think Armfield is a UFC caliber fighter. Certainly not the caliber of a Brad Katona. And I certainly hope we don't agree on this one, Drake. But who do you got?
No, we're definitely agreeing on this one. I have Katona as well, but I actually also feel that this could potentially be a bit of a trap fight. So Katona, obviously, he returned back to the UFC, and he looked good in his last fight. He had 160 whatever significant strikes. It was a battle, and he looked good compared to where he had been 4 years ago in the UFC. But Armfield is probably the more dangerous fighter. I'd say once this, I mean, if he gets out of the first round, if Katona makes it out of the first round, then I think he skates the next 2 rounds and just, does whatever he wants. But I think Armfield is completely live that first round, given how dangerous he is.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, he does come out aggressively in the first round. There are going to be some exchanges, and definitely could see upset happening. I just think Katona. I just think Armfield is a little too stiff. Katona's a little too athletic, and I think that's going to carry the day. But we have not heard from Joe yet. Joe, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I'm going to pick Katona as well. If you look at his last fight, okay, that was the best performance he's ever had, and also the highest DraftKings score he's ever had. I just have a feeling that Armfield might neutralize him for a bit. I don't know that I see this as a high-scoring fight. I don't think I'm going to be targeting it all that much. Maybe come in at or below whatever the ownership might be here. He scored, 96 in his last fight? 160 significant strikes, but, no knockdowns, no takedowns, no reversals, no control time. I mean, I don't know that he's going to be able to land 160 significant strikes against Armfield. So I'll take Katona for the win. I think if you like him, I think he's probably a better bet than he is a DraftKings play, but I'll definitely take him to get the win here. What do they call him? Clark Kent? Is that his nickname? I
haven't heard that, but it would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I generally don't like guys who train in Ireland. But
right.
I'll take Katona.
Yeah. So a little bit of agreement there, although a little bit of a disagreement about the mode in which or the frequency in which Katona gets off in this one, but we'll see what happens there. We're going to move on to the pay-per-view card now, but before we do that, we're going to take a little break for our audio-only podcast listeners. And we're back. Hope you did something useful during that break. Read up on some history, got yourself a sandwich, whatever it is that you enjoy doing. Because right now, we are talking about Movsar Evloev at 8,700, taking on Arnold Allen at 7,500. Line on this fight, Evloev minus 180, Arnold Allen plus 155. And before I say anything about this fight, what jumps out at me is this is by far the cheapest that you've ever gotten Movsar Evloev. I believe his last cheapest price before this was 9,200, and he just puts 100 plus points up like it's going out of style. The wrestling, the striking, Arnold Allen probably going to have a bit of a striking advantage here, but I just like Evloev to just be so aggressive and throw so many things at him and just kind of melt him. Not exactly in the same way that Max Holloway did, but kind of the same kind of thing where he's just going to never stop coming. And Allen is just not going to have the space to get his funky striking off as he likes to do. So I got to go with Evloev here. I mean, if nothing else, just based on that $8,700 salary. I love it. Arnold Allen, always dangerous, as we know, but I think Evloev remains undefeated. And I believe we start with Joe for this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, part of me wants to take Allen here just because this is probably Evloev's toughest test. And Allen didn't look awful against Holloway, but I think you have to go with, like you said, the 100-point scorer, 8.7K. You're getting him at a pretty good price. I do think he's going to be highly owned, but I don't think that matters. I think if you want to lock him in cash, I think his floor is pretty solid, because even if Allen is competitive, I don't see him finishing him. If anything, Allen wins a decision. And, even at his best, Allen is not a prolific scorer. He's only scored 100 points once in his entire career. He's a low output type of volume striker that doesn't use his wrestling all that much. And he's certainly not going to try to use it against Evloev. So, yeah, give me Evloev here. I may have a share or two of Allen just because he's so damn cheap. He is 7.5K. He was 7.2K against Holloway. Let's see, how many points did he put up? 32 points. I mean, okay, not a super bad floor. He did fight Max Holloway. But yeah, give me Evloev here. I think he's going to be really popular. Rinse and repeat takedowns. Don't know if he gets the finish or not, because Allen's pretty tough. But I could certainly see him grinding out some takedowns and some control time. And I don't think he's at that big of a disadvantage in striking either. So Evloev here.
Drake, popular play, or we going contrarian for this one?
Completely contrarian. I think Evloev is going to be the next one to fight for the title, and I wouldn't be surprised if he took it from likely Taparia. So, I mean, it's everything that you guys said. Evloev is one of the most complete fighters in the UFC. He is dominant on the feet. He's dominant on the mat. I don't see a way that Allen could even try to win this fight unless he knocks him out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, like Joe said, he's probably going to be popular, but in this instance, I don't really think it matters. If it bothers you, then play more Evloev in the field. If you're making 10 lineups, play him in 8 of them. And I think that solves your problem there. But I am all over Evloev as well. Moving right along in the pay-per-view card, we have what I believe may be my only dog play on the card. But we got, maybe I shouldn't say that yet, but we got Chris Curtis at 8,500 taking on the power bar, Marc-Andre Barriault at 7,700. Line on this fight, we have, what is that fight doing here? That fight is not on this card. Chris Curtis at -180 taking on Andre Barriault plus 155. And I have to go Barriault here for a couple of different reasons. First of all, we've seen Chris Curtis just get off to incredibly slow starts way too often, and that's exactly the opposite of what Andre Barriault is going to do. He's going to get in there. He's going to slog into the clinch and rough him up with strikes in the clinch and grind on him. And this is just not the fight where you want to start slow, even if you want to try to turn on the third. Andre Barriault, not that he has never been finished, but he's a tough guy to finish. And I just can't trust the guy who's a very slow starter against a guy who's a very fast starter. In a 3-round fight, I'm going to take the very fast starter, particularly at underdog odds as he is here. So my pick is Marc-Andre Barriault. And Drake, how you seeing this one?
I'm also on Barriault for every reason you said and a couple of more. So the one time that Barriault was knocked out, it was against Njokuani in 16 seconds, and it was a bit of one of those kind of fluky knockouts. Could Curtis do that? Sure, he's got power, but the thing that really strikes me for this fight is how many strikes Curtis eats before he dishes. And if you do that against Barriault, you're just asking yourself to be in a world of hurt. I think Barriault knocks him out in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely he's going to be staring down the barrel of a lot of offense. There's no question. Joe, what do you think about this one?
So I think Barriault's going to be a popular underdog, and I get it. I understand what you guys are saying. I still think Curtis is a little bit too good for him. And until he proves me he's not, I could certainly see him counterpunching his way to a KO here. I do think, though, that if it goes to decision and Barriault is the more active fighter, that he could certainly steal a decision, especially in Canada. So I understand the love for the power bar. I'm going to pick Curtis here, but I can certainly see, and I certainly will have lineups, built around Barriault because he lets you do a lot of other things in how you build lineups. And I think Curtis is just a little bit too high priced. I would have liked to have seen this a little narrower. But I am going to pick Curtis for the win.
Yeah, Curtis definitely the better technical boxer, body work and all that stuff. But But yeah, I just can't trust it. He's got to start fast. He's got to show it to me, and he hasn't yet. And now, in my mind, the real question of the card, which is the next fighter facing what we call in the business a prospect loss? It is Mike Malott at 9,300 taking on Neil Magny at 6,900. The betting line for this fight is Malott at -400, Magny +300. Kind of tongue-in-cheek there at the beginning, but without question, the most experienced fighter Malott has ever faced, probably the best fighter has ever faced. We know how Magny fights at this point. He's going to try to make things sticky. He's going to try to get the fight to the ground. Malott with a ground game as well. I would rate Magny's ground game a little better than his. Magny very hard to knock out and has only been subbed by kind of the best jiu-jitsu players. Gilbert Burns got him, RDA got him. Beyond that, I think a couple others. And again, really hard to knock out. So for me, I'm not necessarily going to have a lot of Magny, but I don't think I'm going to have a lot of Malott either, just because I think Magny is very tough to finish. And I think the kind of fight he's going to, the weird, sticky kind of fight he's going to bring to Malott is probably something he's never seen before. So it's going to take him maybe a while to adjust, and all things considered, again, not so much a lot of Magny as not a lot of Malott would be the point here. But I guess the pick would be Malott. But for DK, maybe this is one for me to stay away from. And I think we're going to start with Joe here. How do you organize this one in your DraftKings line?
Yeah, actually, we're pretty aligned. I mean, I like Malott to get the win, but I don't, for all the reasons you mentioned about Magny, I don't think his ceiling is as high as other fighters in the 9K range. I mean, I think the ceiling are both Robertson and Jaudvicious is higher. And I believe he's 9.4K, right? I think he's a real risk, in GPPs. If Magny kind of wrestle-lefts him, and look, we know Magny's got cardio for days. He trains in elevation. He's got cardio for days. If he could lock him up against the cage, keeps him out of damage, yeah, I could see him losing a decision. But I don't know if the ceiling is there. So, yes, I think Malott wins the fight. But unless he puts him away, I don't really see him being that good a play on DraftKings. So I'll probably be under market to Malott on DraftKings, but I will tell you I'll pick him as the winner of the fight.
Yeah, I mean, unless Magny, it's gonna come a day where Magny is just shot, and who knows? This might be that day, but I am not betting it. Drake, are you betting it? Are you heavy on Malott on this card?
I'm heavier than you. You both are.
Okay, sure.
I do feel the gatekeeper of that division is slowly and finally coming. The tread is there. It's gone. It's the wheels are off. He's really lost 3 in a row. That fight against Rowe, he lost. And he didn't look good at any of his 3 fights. The 3 fights that he did lose. He won. He beat Daniel Rodriguez before that, and lost to Shavkat before that. So he's going downhill. And, if Malott is the prospect that, a lot of us think he is, or a lot of us want him to be, I think he completely just runs through him. He's 10 for 10 on finishes, and Magny, he's got 11 losses. 8 of them are by finish, whether, it's 2 knockout, 6 submission, and Malott can do it both ways. I think this is going to be a really bad fight for Magny. I think he gets put into a bad situation right off the bat, and he's going to get put down, and it's either going to be ground and powder, or he's going to get choked out.
That could be, that's a consideration. Like if he sparks him out, I can see that. But I do think the longer it goes, if he lets Magny get comfortable in that range that he loves, which is basically right on top of you, then I think it gets worse. But the spark out is definitely, and maybe the minute bonus, who knows? But we'll cross that when we come to it. We are now coming to the co-main event and our first of the 2 title fights. It is Mayra Bueno Silva at 8,600 taking on Raquel Pennington at 7,600. The line for the co-main event, Mayra Bueno Silva -160, Raquel Pennington +140. And I've always I guess kind of underrated Raquel Pennington in her career, but she's doing pretty well with her boxing, with her takedown defense, with a little bit of wrestling of her own. I just think Mayra Bueno Silva is going to be too aggressive to interface here. She's found finishes herself for the last 3 finishes by submission, although not much of a takedown game, it has to be said, for Mayra Bueno Silva. But I just think she's going to be too aggressive, and she's going to win rounds on that basis. I do see this going to a decision. I don't see it scoring all that highly, although maybe Mayra can build up some volume over those 5 rounds and be a cash player, a little plus. But not my favorite fight to target, but I am taking Mayra Bueno Silva just for the volume and the fact that I don't think Pennington's game it has enough to beat her here. But Drake, how do you see the co-main event?
Yeah, I'm on Bueno Silva as well, and I do think the fight could be close, at least for a little bit. Pennington has had, a fairly good resurgence in her career, having won 5 in a row, and not all of it was bad competition. I'd say that the fight against Vieira and Chianza, those are now when you look at it, they're pretty good wins, but Bueno Silva, I think, is just going to be slightly better everywhere, and she should be the stronger of the two. She looked better on this, or bigger on the face off. So I think Bueno Silva kind of just has her way and does whatever she wants with her.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it too. I think she's going to just take over the fight. Joe, what about you? How do you see the co-main event?
Yeah, so MBS popped for Ridiol, or what's Adderall. That's what she popped for. Wasn't performance enhancing. Apparently she takes it for focus. And if you listen to her interview, she always seems a bit mellow. So I don't know if maybe she's going to be missing the Ritalin. If she's going to be missing the Ritalin or not. I have concerns if this fight actually does go into the 4th and the 5th round for MBS. I do like MBS here. I don't like her by a ton, but I do like her, and I would like to see this fight end within the first 3 rounds for MBS. That's the only way I think you're going to get a decent score. If this goes to decision, it's probably not going to score all that well. I don't expect to see a lot of takedowns. I expect to see a lot of clinching, cage stuff. Would it surprise me if Pennington won? No, not in the least. But I'll take MBS here. I don't think Pennington's going to make the same mistake that Holm made in her last fight. And I do have concerns if this fight goes long. I think it's a weird co-main event, in all honesty. I would have liked to have seen Valentina actually fight for the co-main, because I think, honestly, she is actually the best 135er right now, even though she's been fighting at 125. She arguably beat Nunes once, if not twice. And I definitely see her. We made a bet on her to be the bantamweight champion at the end of 2024. So I would like to see Valentina actually, do that, and then maybe go back down and beat Grasso and be a 2-division champ. But it's not the fight we have in front of us right now. It's MBS versus Pennington. I'll take MBS here. It's not an overly confident bet, and I do have concerns if this fight goes into the later rounds that MBS is not going to gas. We've seen her gas in 3-round fights.
But do you have any concerns about Pennington in that? Because she hasn't fought a 5-round fight since she fought Nunes.
Yeah, I mean, she does. What I like about Pennington is she trains at altitude. I would expect that she might be in a little bit better condition for that reason alone, training in Colorado. But yeah, I think both these women could be tired. Pennington is going to win with a score of 62. Yeah, I could see that happening even in a 5-round fight. If you're not getting any takedowns, if you're not going to get a lot of high volume strikes, I mean, maybe you get some clinch and control time. So yeah, I don't know how much exposure I'm going to have to this fight. I don't think it's a must play. I honestly think you could fade this fight unless you really have a strong take one way or another. And you think that MBS is going to get a finish inside the first 3 rounds, then maybe you play her. But otherwise, I think you could skip this fight for drafting.
As long as it doesn't end up like Thug Rose and Carla Esparza, then I'm okay.
Yeah. I think you should at least get somebody going for somebody pushing forward and looking for offense. So, that we're already ahead of the game. But that'll take us to the main event, which is Sean Strickland, the people's main event. Sean Strickland at 8,200 taking on Dricus Du Plessis at 8,000. Line for the main event. as close as you like. Minus 110, plus one, minus 110, minus 110 rather. Pick 'em fight. So what do we say about this one? And I know Drake and I definitely disagree about this as well. I am firmly one of the people in the camp that I am waiting for Dricus Du Plessis to lose. I have been waiting for Dricus Du Plessis to lose since he got to the UFC. I just cannot abide that a style so janky like that, that's so wide open, has gotten this far, let alone be the champion. But I really do think this is where it stops. Sean Strickland is very difficult to hit clean, let alone, hump up on and get combinations off against. He's also very hard, rather, to take down, very hard to hold down. We saw that in the Abus Magomedov. The less said about him, the better. But he was the first one to take Sean Strickland down in, I think, a few years, and certainly didn't hold him there. So very hard to take down, even as strong as Dricus is, and he is strong, that could play a role. But I have to think that this is where the whirling dervish finally spins out of control, because Strickland, whatever you want to say about him, is just very good defensively, very tight, and very sound. And I feel like that's the exact kind of fighter that beats a fighter like Dricus Du Plessis. So, look, it's middleweight, and weird stuff happens at middleweight. And so for all I know, Dricus Du Plessis is going to be the champion, and he's going to knock him out in a minute and a half. I don't really do too well with fights above 170 pounds, but I think that that Sean Strickland is just gonna be too composed here. Like I say, hard to hit clean, and just kind of that negative style that's gonna really frustrate Dricus finally. So I'm taking Sean Strickland, and we're going to go first to a man who I'm sure has a diametrically opposed opinion. So Drake, how do you see the main event?
You're damn straight we do. Because I was on Dricus against Bob Whitaker. I've been on him every fight in the UFC. I said he is going to be a champ, and I'm going to stick to that for more reasons than just me liking Dricus Du Plessis. Strickland, like you said, he is extremely technical. He's got he's really good defensively. He's solid everywhere. There's no weakness to Sean's game. The problem is that when Dricus comes forward, so the way that I see this is Dricus is going to push forward. He throws a lot of really powerful and a lot of looping and hook shots. Strickland is going to throw a lot down the middle. So it's going to be both of them eating a lot of shots. And I think it's just going to come down to whoever lasts, because I don't see it going 5 rounds. I don't even see it going 4 rounds. I think it ends within the first 3. And, obviously I would give Du Plessis the advantage on the mat if he can get it there. But I think we just see a firefight. And I'll take the guy that's stronger. I mean, plus Du Plessis likes to attack the body, and Strickland, that's one of the spots where he's weak. And, if there is a weakness for Strickland, it's there. He keeps his hands high and tight, and they're like this. His body's open a lot. So like you said, we're going to be opposite. I'm on Du Plessis and new all day.
Yeah, I can definitely say it. And I do think maybe middleweight's just one of those divisions where, like, the guy, the big, strong disruptor guy who's just going to throw all the strikes is the champion. Maybe that's just how it goes at middleweight. But I don't know. It's just been so long since we've seen, even when we saw him knocked out. I mean, it comes from one big strike or one. I don't remember the last time we saw him Strickland like really on the ropes, really getting beat up. Maybe the Usman fight, which is years ago now. But it'll be interesting to see.
I'm going to add something real quick before you switch over to Joe.
And
I mentioned this before he had that fight with Whitaker. He had gotten that septum deviation surgery, so he was actually able to breathe, and we saw it in that fight. It was a night and day difference. His cardio was way better, and if that's the case, and that's how he's going to fight every fight, good luck beating him.
Yeah. No, I was very surprised by the Whitaker result. I know you were not, but I think you might have been in the minority there. But Joe, what do you see in the main event here?
Dricus is no Pereira and Strickland's no Whitaker. I like Strickland here a good bit. I love the way he fights. I love the way he trains. I mean, 95% of his training is sparring. I mean, that's all this guy does. Like, he's not afraid to get hit. He's got a pretty tight guard, except when he lowered it against Pereira for some unknown reason. I really do I think this is going to be a good fight. I would be surprised if it went to the ground at all. I think in a stand-up fight, there's very few people that could beat Sean Strickland at middleweight. He almost finished Izzy in the first round. I mean, he's a measured fighter. I'm going to have shares of Dricus. I mean, I could see it. I could see this. I could see him getting the win here. But at 8.2K, I think this is a great fight to target. I mean, either way, you take a stance. You got Strickland at 8.2K. You've got Dricus at 8K. It's essentially an even fight right now in the odds. I mean, it's kind of bouncing back and forth. I mean, 1 minute it's Sean that's slightly the favorite. The other, next it's Dricus. I don't see a new here. Strickland's a wild character. I kind of like him having a champ. He's very controversial, which I think makes for good TV. So I'll take Strickland here. I would advise having some shares of Dricus. But Strickland 8.2K, that's where my money's going. I think it's an interesting fight. It's an interesting main event. Let's go.
Yeah, it is the case that whenever you have 82, 800, two guys that are just going to throw at each other at that price over 5 rounds. I mean, almost must ownership in most of your lineups, I think. Especially considering how aggressive Strickland has been lately and how aggressive Dricus Du Plessis always is. But that is the end of the fight card, and we are going to launch into hot takes. If you don't know what this is, we take something that is juiced on the line, heavy odds, plus 300s, 400s, that kind of thing, parlays, whatever you'd like, and we recommend them to you to perhaps make some money. And then we ask you guys in the chat if you have some hot takes for us. So I will ask our panelists first. Do you guys have any hot takes ready?
I have one. So I think I alluded to it earlier. If you play Jasmine Jaudvicious inside the distance and you parlay her with Robertson inside the distance, that will pay 9-2 or plus 460. It's not a home run. It's not super sexy, but I think it's very likely an outcome where, you get 2 finishes by those 2 ladies, females, and pick up a nice juicy little plus 460. So that's my hot take.
That would be home run enough for me. I got to tell you. I will go next. I see me and Drake are aligned on the Marc-Andre Barriault fight, but I actually think this is a decision fight. I think that Chris Curtis is very durable, and if I'm going to pick Marc-Andre Barriault to win the fight, I'm going to pick him to leap out in the first 2 rounds and maybe fade in the third, but hang on for a decision, or carry it over 3 rounds total. And that's a plus 400. Again, a home run enough for me. So that is going to be my hot take, is Marc-Andre Barriault by decision. Drake, do you have a hot take ready to go?
So I got, a couple of them. I got Malcolm Gordon by TKO round 1. It's plus 400. It's Jimmy Flick has no chin at all. So if it stands at all. And the other one, just a little 4-person parlay. It's got Evloev, Bueno Silva, Jaudvicious, and then Sean Woodson. Pays out at plus 735. It's something I'm high on. So I like that one.
That, I think Joe would agree, would be a home run. 730, that's home run status, right, Joe? Okay, we got the approval. I do not see any hot takes in the chat, so I will give you guys until I make my outro, and then we will just sign off. But I want to go ahead and thank Drake and Joe for being here. Always a good time. Check out Joe at Sun Tzu on Twitter. Check out Drake at DBirds on Twitter. Check out me on RotoWire. Check out Drake on RotoWire. Check out Joe, various podcasts, and Joe on Twitter. And always a fun time, as I say. Good luck in the contest. I still do not see any hot takes, so we will leave it at that. Thank you guys for watching and listening, all just the same, if you are listening on the audio podcast, and good luck in all of your contests.
Go Packers.
I'll take it. Packers.
Go.